There are 100,000 different battery manufacturers on the market, and giving some insight into which ones you may want to consider is exactly what we're going to cover today in lesson number 7 of this Battery Basics playlist. My name is Nate.
And I'm Steph.
And welcome to the EXPLORIST.life Mobile, Marine, and Off-Grid Electrical Academy. Let's get started. We've spent the last 6 videos of this playlist giving some really data-driven information on what battery should you choose for your electrical system. We've talked about, battery power density, and we've talked about, density per dollar, which I don't know how useful that was. We've talked about, how to wire a battery bank in series and parallel, and 12-volt batteries and 24-volt batteries and 48-volt batteries. And this video is going to be a little less data-driven and more experience-driven. We've been involved in well over 30,000 electrical system installations as part of our store and as part of this YouTube channel. And so we've got a lot of insight that we would like to share, and maybe you'll find it helpful. We have quite the variety of battery manufacturers at this point in our store, shop.explorist.life. We've got SOK batteries. They're all behind us for the most part. SOK batteries, Battleborn batteries, Rich Solar batteries, XPN 360 batteries, 63? XPN 360 batteries, Victron lithium batteries, Epoch batteries,
Dakota lithium
batteries, which, as we figured out in the last video, is some of the highest power density that we carry in our store, so that's kind of cool. But whenever you're helping somebody design their electrical system, through, our tech support channels, what are some things that you're looking at?
2 things that I'm looking at is what kind of space do you have for these batteries? What system have we already designed? I said 2 things, but there's more than 2 things. What system have we already designed? Is it 12 volt, 48 volt, 24 volt? And then what kind of conditions are you going to be camping in? Are you going to be camping up in northern
Ontario
in the winter, or are you going to be down in Texas most of the time? So basically, I'm trying to figure out: do you need a battery heater? Do you have space for a larger battery? And then what options do we have for 12 versus 24 versus 48 volt batteries?
Yeah, I would say another consideration I have is actual capacity, because if somebody needs, more than 400 amp hours at 12 volts, then I'm going to start looking at, that's generally going to be multiple batteries wired together. So if somebody needs 600 amp hours, that's too much for this single Epoch 460. But maybe they don't have enough space for 2 of these guys for a combined 920 amp hours. Maybe they need somewhere right in the middle. So maybe we start looking at the SOK battery over there, just a shade over 300 amp hours. We do 2 of those in parallel to give us a 12 volt battery bank, at just a shade over 600 amp hours. I'm trying to not wire just a whole lot of batteries together into one battery bank if I can't help it. Yeah. We've got this 100 amp hour Battleborn battery back there, and we've definitely showed those in videos in terms of wiring, 6 of those in parallel. Battleborn even has larger batteries at this point. They've got 270 amp hour batteries at this point, and since they came out with those, I sort of hate wiring a whole bunch of batteries together at this point in time. I'd rather just use 1 or 2 or maybe 3 much larger batteries.
Yeah, I would say unless I'm designing a like an Explore Mini where it's a 800 watt inverter. I can't remember the last time I really recommended a 100 amp hour battery that wasn't going into an Explore Mini. If we're up in the 2000 watt inverting capacity, we're gonna start with either an SOK battery, an Epoch 460. The Epoch 460 Essentials is a great value as well. The Battleborn GC3. That's a really good footprint as well for a 2,000 watt inverter.
For the Epoch batteries, now that you're bringing that up, the Epoch Essentials overlay versus the Epoch Elite, which is that one back there. They both come in a 460 amp hour version, and there's a lot of confusion on like why you would choose one over the other. And so let's talk about the differences between those two, because I think that's pretty important. We have on our store the fact that the Epoch Essentials 460 is not recommended for a system revolving around a multi-plus 3 kVA, so nearly 3,000 watts of inverting power. Reason on that is the BMS for that battery is only rated at 200 amps. And whenever we're looking at a 3,000 watt inverter on a 12 volt system, worst case scenario, we're pushing that inverter to its max, 3,000 watts divided by 12 volt nominal, that's 250 amps. If you tried to pull 250 amps from that Epoch Essentials battery, it's going to shut down because that BMS is going to be like, hey, that's way too much power. We can't do that. We're just going to turn off. So if you're doing a 460 amp hour battery, if you're really looking at the Epoch line of batteries, and you want that multi-plus 3 kVA, you sort of have to go with this one here because it's got a higher powered BMS and it's not going to shut down whenever the multi-plus is just really cruising.
Alternatively, you could do 2 of those Epoch Essentials, and then you've got 920 amp hours of battery bank capacity.
For only 2 batteries. And the reason the Epoch Elite line is more expensive is partially because of that higher powered BMS, but also because it has external communications. So you can connect that communications from those batteries up to the Victron Servo GX, and then on your touchscreen you can see that information directly from the batteries without the need for a shunt. Now, a smart shunt, a Victron smart shunt's only $100. Like they're 100 and, are they under 100? 100 and some change?
They're right at 100.
They're approximately 100. And
I think they're $100.30.
Yeah, they're right at it.
I could be wrong about that.
You're usually not wrong about numbers. And you could pop one of those into your system and then get battery monitoring to your Servo GX just fine. And that's realistically what I recommend to a lot of people if they're considering the Epoch line of batteries. Going a little further down that rabbit hole with communications, I would also say you sort of have to ask yourself, what do you want from your communications on your batteries? Because for years and years and years, communications with a battery wasn't really a thing, except for pretty specialized batteries. My mom's motorhome, our transit van, the old Sprinter, none of those had batteries that had communications in them. It just sort of wasn't available back then. And there's really nothing wrong with that. The communications in batteries is sort of a new thing, but it is a more complex and technical thing. There's settings you have to change within the batteries, and you're having to hook up data cables, and you're having to change data speeds within the Servo GX depending on which battery you're connected to. And you have to ask yourself if that's what you want. Do you have problems rotating PDFs? You might not want a battery that's got a whole bunch of communications in it. You might just want to keep it simple. And that Epoch Essentials line is really good for that. Rich Solar has a great line of batteries for that's not communications enabled. It's got an internal Bluetooth communications thing that you can choose to either use or not use. Integrate a shunt into that system, and that's a very good and simple battery bank system that I recommend to a lot of people. What about 48 volt systems? If you're building a 48 volt system for somebody, we've recently been getting customers who are reaching out about off-grid cabins, off-grid houses, battery backups for houses, the bigger systems and stuff like that might need 20 kilowatt hours of power. What are your considerations on 48 volt batteries?
So I think the considerations are pretty similar. Size, footprint. Most 48 volt batteries are going to come in this rack style battery, this rack style footprint, and so you're going to just stack them right on top of each other, which is a great footprint. But recently Epoch came out with that exact same battery in a 48 volt version, so you've got new styles. So I can't say that I really consider those any differently than I would any other system. Except I would say probably for an off-grid cabin, I'm going to be considering the warranty a little bit more than an RV. And that's just in my opinion. I'm probably not going to keep the same RV for 12 years.
But a house, you're going to try and
But
keep
a
that
house,
system.
I'm probably going to keep that system. Yeah.
And then also I would say, with rack style batteries like that, for 48 volt systems in a house, I'm going to this one, this type of battery every single time. We have this one in our store currently. I think we're adding an SOK version of this. I think there's an Epoch line of rack style batteries that if it's there, it might be. If it's not, it probably should be.
I think there will be an Expion as well that's a similar.
And I really love these rack style batteries because they have a breaker right here on the front. Can you see that, Grace, behind the camera? So they've got a breaker right here on it. And so we don't have to add any kind of overcurrent protection between this positive terminal and the links power in, if that's the direction we're going. And they also have, they do have communications. For me, that's less of a concern as far as I'm concerned. This is such a big deal because you don't have to worry about external battery switches or external overcurrent protection. It's just right there. You don't need anything extra. It's built in, saves on cost, all that kind of stuff. And so regardless of which brand of rack style battery you like, do your research on which brand and stuff like that, but we carry different versions of this, and these are great. The other thing about rack style batteries in regards to what you were talking about, a rack style battery has a pretty standardized actual size. It's made to fit into a rack, an actual rack. That's the way our event trailer is set up. Our event trailer is set up we could power pretty much anything. We have 4 of those Rich Solar rack style batteries in it, and we can power events. And if those batteries sort of got obsolete here in another 15 years or whatever the case is, that's a standardized size. So we'll be able to pull those out, send those to recycling, and then put some new ones back in, connect the new cables, and then that should be that. Pretty much like an hour's worth of work and you're done with it. So that's the biggest consideration in my mind for 48 volt systems. I sort of never recommend doing multiple batteries together in series anymore to make a higher voltage battery bank. In the past, we used to recommend that on the channel, but it was largely based on battery availability. We did that in the Transit, and it's fine. It works fine. If you've done that in the past, I'm not telling you to go change it. But if you're doing a new system, maybe consider not. All of these batteries behind us to a degree, there's 24 volt versions, and we've got 12, 24, and 48 volt versions in our store. And so it's just so much simpler if you're designing a 48 volt system to just get a 48 volt battery. If you're doing a 12 volt system, get 12 volt batteries. If you're doing a 24 volt system, get 24 volt batteries, and then wire them in parallel. It's just so much easier, less confusing. The communication's better, and overall. And the thing that really sucks about 12 volt batteries in a 48 volt system is you have to charge each of those 12 volt batteries to 100% full before you wire them in series to make the overall battery bank. And I don't know what YouTube channels everybody watches, but Van Wives, that YouTube channel, they made an off-grid electrical system in their cabin up in Canada, and they actually came to me to design the system. They didn't give me credit for it, but whatever. I'm not bitter about that anymore. But anyway, they already had all their batteries. They had 16 of these Battleborn batteries, and whenever they came to me and they asked about that, and they asked about the system, I said, hey, is there a chance that we could, we can still use Battleborn, that's fine, but what are our options as far as battery voltages go? What? And they're like, well, we've already got them in our garage. It's like, well, okay. And so we designed a system that they had to do that. And they are fully off grids. Before that, they were running off the generator. And so they had to have their generator running for 4 days or something like that. The video was, I'll let y'all look it up. But ultimately, they had to charge each of these batteries individually, separately, through the generator, which was a big process. You're charging 16 batteries to full. That's silly. Whenever you could have just had these batteries, popped them in place, wired them up, turned on your multi-plus inverter chargers, and been done with it, been good to go. So that's a kind of, a big consideration with multiple batteries in the same battery bank. Any other technical considerations for any of this? Incompatibilities, anything like that?
Ooh, good question.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the negatives of what people could run into. How about if somebody has a 12-volt air conditioner, a 12-volt DC air conditioner, but then they need 5,000 watts of inverting power?
Ooh, yeah. I mean, that's a tough one. I think you're gonna have to put a converter in there.
You're in a bad spot if you've
Yeah.
done that.
Yeah, if you've done something like that, that means that you probably haven't designed your system before you started buying parts, which we see that a lot. We see a lot of people start buying parts, and then they design their electrical system, and then they realize that they've bought some parts that aren't compatible. Essentially, I mean, yeah, if you need 5,000 watts of inverting power, plus you've got a 12-volt air conditioner, you're probably going to end up having to do a converter in there somewhere.
I'm going to tell people to send their air conditioner back.
Yeah. Now, what if you've already installed it?
Yeah, dang, that sucks. You're going to go. I mean, there's certain things where it's like, we're, as professionals, we're not going to send you guys down a bad path. And so I'm going to present options of what I'll support. And if your path isn't within those options, I don't know how much more I can help.
Yeah.
And so I think that the big consideration there, don't choose your system voltage before you buy everything. Come up with a plan first. Like, come up with a plan for what you're doing. Reach out to us at shop.explorist.life/support. Run your plan by us, and then we'll tell you if your plan's good or if your plan's bad. Usually we already have a plan that's already in place, and we can sort of prevent those problems right off the bat, because, man, those problems can get expensive in a hurry. Like I said, we've got all kinds of different battery manufacturers in our store. And so, if you have a particular battery manufacturer in our store, I would say buy it from our store. Don't go directly to the manufacturer. And the reason is because, and I'm not trying to say that the manufacturers can't provide the support, because we don't carry a battery where the manufacturer can't provide support. That's a big reason for the batteries that we choose to have in our store, because, let's be clear here that we could have any battery manufacturer in our store, but we kind of pick and choose which ones have good support for us to make sure you guys are taken care of. But I would say buy it from us instead of going direct, because then we can be your single point of contact for your entire electrical system.
Yep.
If you buy your Victron components from us, and then your wiring components from Amazon, and then your battery directly from the battery manufacturer, and you come to us and we determine it's a battery problem, we're just going to send you to the battery manufacturer. Mm-hmm. Or we're going to ask you to sign up for our Pro Support membership, which entitles you to support regardless of where you've purchased your components. But we're priced the same as the manufacturers, and so there's not a cost benefit of going direct to the manufacturers. And this is turning into a sales pitch, but we still have people who don't realize we sell parts.
Yep.
And so I'm making it abundantly clear. And we love
Shop.explorist.life.
And we'd love to help y'all out in y'all's next projects. So anything else as far as batteries, or does that pretty well cover it between this and the 6 previous lessons of this academy?
I think that pretty well covers it. I think you've got a lot of information to be able to choose your battery and understand how everything works. And I think that's great.
Hit us up. We'd love to be part of your next project. Shop.explorist.life. There's a little chat bubble down in the bottom right-hand corner. That will send you to our inbox, and we can get you pointed in the right direction. That wraps up the batteries chapter of the Explorist Life Mobile, Marine, and Off-Grid Electrical Academy. The next chapter of this academy is going to be all about inverters. We're going to talk about what an inverter is, what it does, sizing, single phase, split phase, what inverters are good for 30 amp shore power, 50 amp shore power, and off-grid houses. And we're going to talk about that coming up in the following weeks. So stay tuned. Join academy.explorist.life if you want to see these before they're released on the YouTube channel. But otherwise, that's pretty much that. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.